Yes, 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 and yes. Thrive Nation, to my right, we have Pastor Craig Hagan here from Rhema Bible College. Again, if you're thinking about putting your kids in Bible college, you definitely want to check out Rhema Bible College. That's R-H-E-M-A. Pastor Craig, what is your website for Rhema Bible College?
It's rbtc.org. rbtc.org.
I feel like somebody's driving right now. They want to write it down, but they're driving with their knees. They're eating baked beans, and so they need more time. What's that website one more time?
rbtc.org.
Okay. And so again, if you had to say, what is the purpose? If you had to give somebody a 4-line, maybe a 5-line reason that you would want to send your kids to Bible college, what would that be?
Actually, to learn more about the Word of God is a big thing. Now, some people feel they're called to the ministry, so obviously they should go to Bible college. But you know what? The world that we're living in, it's a crazy world, and we need to learn more about the Word of God because we're seeing prophecy come to pass as we speak right now.
And I will say this, Proverbs 22:6 reads this. It says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Again, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. What I'm discovering right now is that if you send your kids to public schools, they're going to try to indoctrinate your kids with Marxist beliefs. As we're now seeing, school boards all over the country are being called out for teaching Marxism to our students. And so I would encourage everybody right now, instead of sending your kids to college, ponder the idea. Take a moment, think about it. What if it's a good idea to send your kids to Bible college? How many years does it take to go to Bible college? How many years?
It's a 2-year program.
A 2-year program. And how much money does it cost?
Well, we are the most affordable Bible college in the nation. $3,100 for the whole year.
And how many people have gone to the Bible college?
We've had 95,000 worldwide graduates. We have campuses all over the world. 28,000 have graduated right here from Tulsa, Broken Arrow, Oklahoma.
And I will say this, during these crazy times, what we're trying to do on the Thrive Time show is I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to prepare you. So let me just give an example. Right now, we all know that the models that said that 2.2 million Americans would die from COVID-19, those models that said that 2.2 million Americans would die from COVID-19, those models are false. We now know that the PCR tests are falsely calibrated to inflate the number of COVID-19 cases. We now know that COVID-19 is 100% treatable using budesonide, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. We now know there's been medical fraud. We're now seeing election fraud being exposed all over the country. We're now seeing it seems like every institution that could be shaken is being shaken. And now we're seeing hurricanes devastating parts of America right now. You're seeing massive forest fires in Utah. There's so much stuff going on. And what we're trying to do is make sure that you have the resources that you need. And so one resource is you want to make sure that you always know the source, which is Jesus Christ. So I'd encourage you to send your kids to Rhema Bible College. Also, I would encourage you to make sure that you have power. Power? Yeah, I'm just saying, if you have the grid goes down, we know that the Chinese Communist Party this year was able to get in to our grid. The Chinese Communist Party hacked into the United States electrical grid this year. We know that is possible. We know they have done that. And if the power goes out, what are you going to do? Imagine you're having a great office meeting. You're having a lot of things going on in your business, at your home. Your family's watching a movie, and all of a sudden, you're sitting in the dark. Now, when you're sitting in the dark, what are you going to do? And by the way, when the power grid goes out, they typically don't warn you first. So what we're going to do in the coming weeks is we're going to get an expert on the Thrive Time show to join us on a weekly basis to educate us about how we can get off the grid if we want to. Maybe it's a backup plan for you. Maybe it's a philosophical idea for you. But we're going to have a guest on today's show who's going to walk us through how to get off the grid. Steve Cloward, welcome onto the Thrive Time show. How are you, sir?
Hey, fantastic. Glad to be here.
Steve, how did you originally hear about us?
Well, I started going down the old rabbit hole about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and came across your podcast. I think it might have been with one of the fireside chats, maybe with Lynn Wood. And then I went to your website, and, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and your website blew me away from an entrepreneurial standpoint and what you do, and just the resources and the things that you offer for free, but also to clients. And so, I just kind of followed along and just kept watching you and finally reaced out to you and started working with your company.
You came out to a conference and we reconnected with you, and we're honored to know you. And you help people put solar power on their home. You bring solar power, solar panels to people's homes and businesses. Do you have a website people can check out?
You bet. We're just remodeling it right now, but it's advancedhomepros.com.
Advancedhomepros.com. Okay. And full disclosure, I have not paid you any money at all to install solar powered panels on my building yet, but we are in the process of getting a quote, correct?
That is 100% correct. So
the building we're in right now, our new building, which we started about 2.5 years ago, this building currently is connected to the grid. And what I'm trying to do is to figure out how many solar panels I need to slap on this building. Maybe I need to wear solar panels. I don't know how many solar panels I need to have to actually get off the grid full time. So walk us through, what's the process that you've been taking me down? How does this work? Where are we at in the process?
Perfect. So whether it's business or residential, we primarily focus on residential. We certainly can do commercial. The process is the same. You'll typically have an initial, discussion with one of our solar experts. They're going to basically ask you some basic questions, age of roof, the type of roof, if you have any current discounts on your current energy bill, if you don't have a pool, if you plan to add a pool or maybe even a hot tub, possibly an electric car. We want to take all those things into consideration up front so we properly set up the correct.
I am adding a water feature behind the building at some point. The Tiki Village is going in. So just so you know, we got
cool. Okay.
You saw the tikis.
Yeah.
We brought them over, but we need to get the water flow in there. We got to create that whole vibe, that whole mojo. And so what's the first step? If I go to advancedhomepros.com, what's the first step I need to take?
Step number one is you'll literally just schedule an initial consult with one of our solar experts. They're going to ask you just those 4 or 5 basic questions. That then allows them get the address. They can literally jump on a tool that we have that allows us to see an overhead view of the property.
Got it.
Yours is a little difficult since it wasn't there at the time, but we can still do it. In fact, our engineers are working on your building right now. And because we want to make sure that somebody's a good candidate or their property's a good candidate. It's going to show us the shade, where the sunlight hits, because we don't want to overbuild the system, but we certainly don't want to underbuild the system.
And what's it going to cost me to have if I have a 6,000 square foot building I just built? What's it going to cost? When do you get to the pricing deal?
As soon as we go over that initial discussion, get that information, make sure that the property is a good fit for solar, because sometimes there could be too much shade and it may not make sense. That's pretty rare. Then we get that information over to our engineers. They put all that together. Typically 24 hours, we turn that proposal back around. At that point, we reach back out to the customer to go through the different options. The thing that's nice about solar, there's a lot of benefits. There's some great tax incentives out there. There's zero out of pocket, zero down. So it's really simple.
Zero out of pocket, zero down. I feel like you're going to charge me at some point.
That's a good point, because we are.
Okay. Nice.
Most people are going to finance it. There are definitely some clients we have that will pay for it up front. But for financing, there's zero down programs. There's nothing out of pocket if you choose to finance. Because really what we're doing is we want to take a look at what your motivation is, number one. Why are you wanting to get solar? If it's to get off the grid, great. That requires battery backup. That's going to be a little more expensive than a typical solar setup where you're still attached to your electric company, because what we're doing is we're capturing the sun, throughout the day, building that up. And, eventually it's going to start spinning your meter backwards, basically, because you're going to create a credit that then through the evening and nighttime,
I want to be off the grid, totally off the grid. What do I have to do? Do I have to erect a large tower and then slap solar panels on the whole thing? Do I need to?
It'll be exact same process. It's just going to require those batteries for backup, which they're fairly expensive. You're talking around 12 to 14 grand a battery. It drops off a little bit after the first one.
What do I have to do to get totally off the grid? I don't want to be connected to the grid and then put an extra back to the grid. I want to be off the grid. How do I get off the grid?
100%. We just have to factor in the proposal, all the batteries that'll hold the power, so that in the evening, or if anything happens, we've got enough redundancy built in so that you'll never go without power, especially in a business. We don't want to make a mistake.
So the initial consultation, we've got that going. You're preparing a quote. When are you going to hit me with the number? When is it going to?
Monday afternoon.
Monday? Well, really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, now, Craig, do you do any solar power stuff? I mean,
not as yet, but we've thought about it.
So, okay. So now he has a church. He has one of Oklahoma's most historic, most well-known churches. For anybody out there who went to the Reawaken America tour, featuring General Flynn, Mike Lindell, Sidney Powell, Jim Caviezel, anybody who went to that event. The first event that we had would not have been possible without Craig Hagan from Rhema Bible College agreeing to host the event. Craig, how large of a campus do you have there?
We actually have 110 acres of campus, and we have.
Look at him; he's got the commission in his eyes.
And so we have.
Oh yeah.
Actually, most of our buildings are flat roof too. So and highly sun.
I can see right now. Steve's like,
but one thing
I can put a panel on that. I can put a solar panel on that.
We do lights. And so we have 3 million Christmas lights all throughout.
Wow.
And we've thought about because actually saying that we power those things all by solar power. Or by wind power or some kind of alternative.
Would you let him give you a quote too?
Well, yeah, that's what. I'm thinking about this kind of stuff.
That'd be great,
especially because we have a lot of flat roofs, and I know that there's a lot of sun there because our roofs. After a while, we have to redo them and whatever. So
what is your? How does Craig get a hold of you?
The website.
You go to Advanced Home Pros. You can just enter your information right there above the fold on the home page, and then.
I'm not for anybody out there who wants to get in touch with Craig. Let me give out his cell phone number real quick. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So so you guys should talk offline though. Seriously. Okay. So step 1, schedule an initial consultation. Step 2, the price quote is generated. Step 3, the approval. You approve the proposal. Step 4, there's a call. Do you actually move forward? How long does it take to put the panels on? If I said, yeah, Monday, woo, it's awesome, great, let's do it. How long?
It's typically about a 30-day turnaround from start to having the technicians there putting the panels in. On commercial, it is typically a little longer there because you're going to jump through a few extra hoops with city, depending on the city and permitting and things like that. Where residential is a lot simpler when it comes to that.
Got it. So then, how do you make money? Like, how do you, because, I tell people this as a consultant. If I have a client, most people know this because I talk about it all the time, but we have 160 clients. And you say, well, how come not 407? Because I wouldn't know everybody's name. Every one of our clients, in my opinion, has a business that matters. And the other day, Joe Lai, he's the orthodontist I work with there at klortho.com. He sends me a text. We're talking about his son's a phenomenal quarterback in football. So we were talking about his son. I work with him to grow his orthodontic practice. And he's been a client for almost 10 years, but he's also a dad who his son was 6 years old when he first became a client. And now his son's 16. He's a great athlete. And he was like, Clay, can your guys help? Can your video team help me make a video reel, a highlight reel for my son? Because colleges are starting to recruit him. So when you work with us, we do photography, videography, web development, search engine optimization. We do all of it for $1,700 a month. And so we make a $340 profit per client. You say, well, how do you know that? I know my payroll. And if you take my payroll and my overhead, my fixed costs for my office, my insurance, my air conditioning, all that, and you divide it, after all expenses are paid, there's a 20% profit there, thus generating a monthly profit of $54,400 a month, plus any extra commissions that we might make. And that's how I make money. How do you make money in the solar game? Do you guys make a small percentage? How does that work?
We base it off a small percentage. In the quote, we just add, a few pennies to the kilowatts. But we're typically in the 10 to 12% profit range.
And what has you fired up about selling solar panels? Why not, try to, sell large, oversized sea turtles to zoos? Why not do that?
I've been in the home services industry for 10 years, different products. And just, with what's going on, I just think it's a smart move. And I just, I think it's the best thing for homeowners, to use for power because, typically you're going to save in the range of 10 to 20% on what you're paying already. Plus you're adding little value to the property. So it's truly an investment, and it's a smart investment. What
do you think is going on in the world today? How would you, if you say you're sitting next to somebody at the airport and they're not wearing an Antifa shirt, All right. They're sitting next to you at the airport, these airplane friends, and you're sitting next to a guy who's got the mask, where he's got the mask on, but it's pulled down under his nose. So let me explain this. He's wearing the mask, but he's not really wearing the mask. Okay. He's got it under his nose. And that's the international sign for, I think COVID is crap. How would you describe what is going on to somebody? If you're talking to the guy next to you and he says, man, what do you think's going on? How would you describe what's going on?
I believe 100% it comes down to one thing. We're in a spiritual war, and you have to take a look and start using your own mind that God has given you to go educate yourself, rather than buying into some stupid evil narrative that the MSM is feeding you. That's the first thing I would tell people.
Now, Craig, you're a pastor, and you're navigating this with a congregation of people that, as a general rule, I'm not saying your church, but as a general rule, most people get their most people will cite, if you go to church today, the average American will cite as a news source. They'll say, I watch Fox and I watch Newsmax. Now, Fox and Newsmax are both controlled by Big Pharma. Just so we're clear. Pastor Brian Gibson, a very good friend of mine, and a client of mine, he was on Newsmax the other day, and he was talking about the COVID-19 shots. And he was speaking about them because, in his opinion, and from what he knows, he believes it's the most important thing there is to talk about. So they're asking him about religious persecution, and he immediately goes into forced vaccination. Now, if you open your Bible to Revelation 18:23, it reads, for thy merchants were the great men of the earth, and for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. Sorcery means pharmakia. Pharmakia means sorcery. So Pastor Brian brought it up, and he said forced vaccination is totally, it shouldn't even be part of the conversation. Okay, we got SM-102, luciferase, nanotechnology in the shots, graphene oxide that self-replicates. And the moment he begins talking about SM-102, graphene oxide, self-replicating RNA technology, forced vaccinations, the moment they do that, they shut him down. So, and that's the news that the average churchgoer now watches. The average churchgoer now watches Fox and Newsmax, which are controlled by Big Pharma. How would you describe what's going on in the world right now?
Well, it's a crazy world that I thought I would never live in, by the way. Us conspiracy theorists, they call us, if we would have laid out in 2019 what was going to happen over the next couple of years, they would call this a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
But what really happened is that the devil's being what the devil says he's going to do. Jesus said, John 10:10, the thief comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. And that's what's happening right now. I mean, we're seeing death, we're seeing destruction, we're seeing wars, and then we're having the COVID-19 thing. Now, by the way, I have a lady who writes me a letter weekly say, I know you guys are an anti-vax, anti-mask church, but follow the science. And I just throw the letter away. And I'm like,
she sends you every week.
And I'm like, can you quit going to my church? I mean, but she still comes. I don't know why.
Now, this is something big. If you would have said, as you mentioned years ago, that there would be lockdowns, mandates, forced vaccinations, people would have said you're crazy. However, Klaus Schwab, the head of the World Economic Forum, he actually wrote a book called COVID-19, The Great Reset, which explains in great horrific detail that which is going on, where he wants to literally end American sovereignty, end America, and to do to make where he ends individual property ownership. That's what he wants to do. Steve, what are your thoughts? If you could sit down with Klaus Schwab and have a fantastic conversation with him, what would you say to him?
I don't know if I'd speak or if I could just hold back what I'd really want to. The guy's absolutely put it out there. You just showed the book. I've got the book, and it's insane that somebody's wanting to create the things that they're creating and do to, create one world government. Now, I'm going to put out a video. I'm going to add a video to the back end of this interview where it is explaining. There's a video explaining Klaus Schwab. You can hear Klaus Schwab speak himself, his relationship with the Pope. And it's the most bizarre thing ever. I mean, it is crazy. It is such a crazy time we're living in now. So I'm trying to give people, if you want to have a firm foundation, Craig, it talks about the guy in the Bible says, you build your house on the sand. What happens?
It's going to fall. It's going to go flat. So
let's talk about how you build your house on a firm foundation right now. What can you do? One, You've got to raise your kids to love the Lord. So when everything that can be shaken is shaken, your family gets closer to God. I can tell you that I see the real Christians as everything's shaking and there's thoughts of, there's discussions of mandates and lockdowns and getting to CDC quarantine camps. By the way, they're called CDC green zones. If you look them up on Google, there's the lockdowns, the shutdowns, the mandates. You can't go to Disney World anymore without a shot. You're going to lose your job. The Christians are going, oh yeah, this is in the Bible. We knew this was coming. The rest of the world's going, this is crazy. So I'm seeing that. But if you train up your child and the way he should go when he's old, he will not depart from it. What does it look like if someone goes to Rhema Bible College for 2 years? Because I see a lot of adults in their 40s and 50s going back to Rhema Bible College. I see a lot of people. It's not just young people. I'm seeing people of all ages wanting to recalibrate and build that firm foundation. What does that look like?
Well, let me say this, Clay. We had an interview on the podcast. A couple, the South Dakota, and they're sending a lot of youth. But last year they sent a couple, and they were in their 70s. They actually retired from their business and came to Rhema Bible Training College, and they're planning to open a church. They're getting refired up. I don't care whether you're 18 or 72. Somebody's got to get this message out. And they were talking about how these young kids are coming. And you know how it is when you first get saved, how you get excited about the gospel, and then you kind of just 20 years later, no one really cares. But we need to get refired up because we are seeing the last days. And the Bible says in the last days that this gospel shall be preached to every nation. And as people are freaking out about all kinds of stuff, and my conversation almost daily is, hey guys, if you read the Bible, this is going to happen. We already know it's going to happen. But we need to quit freaking out and come and turn to God. And people are looking, remember 9/12 after 9/11, people came to God. And I think that we're having that reawakening. It's pretty cool because Reawakening America tour we're doing.
Yeah.
And there's a reawakening right now among Christians, and people are looking for something to hold on to. And that something is God. And Rhema Bible Training College is a great place to learn the word because, a lot of times we just don't know the word. And we have some great teachers there, rbtc.org.
Now, Craig, you're going to be joining us every Saturday. You and I meet, and that's when I'm going to be interviewing Steve each week to talk about the progress.
Oh, cool.
And so each week, as we hop on the show together, Steve, we're going to give people the updates. We're going to say, okay, we got the quote today. Okay, we got the quote. Okay, and then you might hear above people in the background as they're putting on the solar panels. You might hear people banging on the solar panels. You might hear, you might see people walk by with solar panels. Wouldn't that be cool if the solar panels could be installed on a Saturday so we could see it happening in the background? I'm excited to see what happens. I tell the listeners, I never endorse something unless I actually utilize the service. That's how I am. I'm never going to endorse something that I don't personally utilize. I want to give a few final resources before we hop off today's show that everyone keeps asking me about. Everybody right now is worried about your wealth and your health. Everybody asks me all the time, Clay, who are doctors that you can trust? So I'm telling you the doctors that my family trusts. And this is an exciting day for our listeners. Dr. Jim Meehan just passed, check this out, 2,700 COVID-19 patients that he's treated with 0 deaths.
Wow, 0 deaths.
0 deaths. 2,700 patients he's treated with 0 deaths. And Sherwood TV, Dr. Sherwood.
He's my doctor.
He's your doctor, Dr. Sherwood, Sherwood.tv. This man, Dr. Sherwood, has treated now over 9,000 COVID patients with 0 deaths. And so if you're out there today and you're saying, well, how do I protect myself from COVID-19? Step one, I would recommend you write down the website, meehanmd.com. That's meehanmd.com, meehanmd.com. Also, I'd recommend you write down Sherwood.tv. These are just 2 doctors that are treating people with 100% effective COVID-19 treatments and therapies. Now, if you want to die from COVID-19, if you're saying, I kind of just want to wrap it up here. I just kind of, I don't want to recover. I don't want to fight through the fight. Well, let me tell you what happens is when you go to the hospital, they're going to put you on remdesivir and midazolam. And somebody says, what? It's called remdesivir and midazolam. Now, if you take remdesivir and midazolam, let me tell you what's going to happen. What's going to happen is if you're on remdesivir and midazolam, remdesivir causes renal failure. And somebody says, what? Yes, remdesivir causes renal failure. That's what it does. And so I encourage you out there, you don't want to have renal failure, and midazolam causes breath suppression. So again, if you don't want to die from COVID-19, go to meehanmd.com, go to sherwood.tv. These are great resources for you. Or you can go to timetofreeamerica.com, timetofreeamerica.com. And when you go to timetofreeamerica.com, you can find the doctors in all 50 states that will treat you with the 100% effective COVID-19 treatments and therapies. Some of those other doctors, which include, we go to budesonideworks.com. That's a great resource. Budesonide, BUDESONIDE works.com. You have Synergy Health, DPC.com, Synergy Health, DPC.com. You have myfreedoctor.com. You have myfreedoctor.com. These are all resources you can find at timetofreeamerica.com. Now, the other thing people ask me about is they say, and by the way, nobody asks me who I recommend for solar panels because they know I don't have any solar panels on any of my properties.
But they will.
But if it turns out to be a good thing, maybe we'll endorse this guy. Maybe we won't. We'll see. But I could say right now, people do ask about the gold and silver thing daily, to the point where my head's going to explode. People say, Clay, do you really buy gold and silver? Yes, I do. And they say, how does it work? Let me explain this to you. This is going to blow someone's mind. Did you know that in Greece in 1944, their highest monthly inflation rate was 13,800%? You know, in Germany, October of 1923, their highest monthly inflation rate hit 29,500%. Do you know that in Yugoslavia, by the way, this is all right before the country falls apart. Yugoslavia, January 1994, the highest monthly inflation was 313 million%, with prices doubling every 3.7 days. Did you know that folks, listen to this, in Yugoslavia, their monthly inflation was 313 million%, but the prices doubled every 1.4 days. So they doubled every 1.4 days. Zimbabwe, 2008. This is getting a little close to now. 2008, Zimbabwe hit 79.6 billion% inflation. Venezuela, 2013, ladies and gentlemen, prices rose that year 41% in 2013. The following year, right after the Maduro and Chavez family teamed up with Smartmatic to switch the boat and to switch the country from a free country into communism, right? The year after they switched from free to communism, the inflation rate was 41%. The following year, inflation hit 65,000%. Now, this is interesting. Shawhomes.com, Oklahoma's largest home builder, has reported to me, and you know Aaron Antis.
Yeah, one of my good friends.
That the inflation of home building products is up over 100% in the last 6 months, which means we have a higher inflation rate of the cost of goods than Venezuela had before they went into hyperinflation. So you talk about the urgency right now. I'm just telling people that I started buying gold when I was it was 2006. So I was I was 7 years. So I was been 25, 26. When I started buying gold, it was $604 an ounce. Gold this weekend just hit $18.95. So people say, man, you're an investment genius. How did you do it? Well, step one, I bought said gold weekly. Step two, I hid said gold. Step three, the gold tripled in value. Those are the steps. What are the steps? Buy said gold. Step two, protect said gold. Step three, it triples in value. These are practical steps, and people always ask me, who do you buy your gold and silver from? I used to buy a lot of gold from goldline.com. They're a great organization. That's goldline.com, goldline.com. I don't have a promo code with those guys. They're just goldline.com. And then per the recommendation of Sean Copeland, who is Oklahoma's Secretary of Commerce, he says, you really need to be buying your gold from Andrew Sorcini. And I said, Andrew who? He says, Andrew Sorcini. I said, he sounds like his like his nickname might be Sneaks or something. He sounds like he might be part of the mafia or something. Andrew Sorcini. Andrew Sorcini and I, we reached out. It turns out he's not part of the mafia. He's a great guy. He's my gold and silver buyer. His phone number is 310-433-3524. Somebody's saying, You're giving out his cell phone number. You're such a mean person. Folks, he makes a commission, okay? His number is 310-433-3524, 310-433-3524. I do actually buy gold and silver from this man, so I can recommend it. And I can say this, I'm on the record. I have not ever purchased solar panels from Steve, but I know that we're equally yoked. We have the same worldview. I met him through the Reawaken America tour. He reached out to me. He said, "You ever thought about solar panels?" I said, "Yes, I have." "Have you ever put solar panels on your building?" "No." So we've had a conversation. This is right here. We're seeing it unfold here. We've got the initial consultation, step 1. Step 2, we're getting a quote on Monday. Step 3, will we approve the proposal? We don't know. We'll see. And then step 4, where the installation shall begin. Steve, final thoughts for our listeners out there. We've got roughly 1 million listeners every week that tune into the show. What final thoughts would you have for anybody out there thinking about putting solar panels on their property?
Well, prior to that, I just want to hit on what both of you said. When it comes to putting God first in our lives. I grew up right here. I'm in Utah. I'm in Mormon country. I grew up Mormon. But the last year and a half, just listening to people like you guys, several other patriots, my whole view and my relationship with God has changed dramatically. And so I just want to thank, you and so many others who have, contributed in me kind of reawakening myself when it comes to my spirituality as well. But from a solar standpoint, now is a great time. Who knows where we're headed? I think Clay's talked about some things that, we need to be prepared. And this definitely, having solar is definitely going to give you, some, you're going to be in a position where you're not going to have to worry about, having power. Who knows what's coming, but, I think we need to be prepared and buckle up because, like you said,
that's why I'm wearing a seatbelt right now. I mean, I just put it on. I sit down every day. I never know what's going to happen. So typically I wear a helmet, which is why my hair looks so crazy all the time. Wear a helmet, wear a seatbelt, cover myself in that what's that
You're
stuff?
Prepared.
What's the stuff that people like to pop? It's like the bubble wrap. Yeah. I mean, luckily we're on camera because normally if I'm off camera, I just surround myself with bubble wrap, Lysol down everything. No, I'm just kidding. But folks out there, there's no need to live in fear, but it is time to be prepared. Okay. So I encourage you to check out advancedhomepros.com. If the company doesn't do a good job, don't buy from them. And if they do a good job, buy from them. But I'll be checking out their services so I can decide whether we should endorse them or not endorse them. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. Craig, you're a beautiful man.